Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate you being here today. Uh, I want to introduce our speaker for today, Hugo Conde, managing partner at Parker Evans Consulting. Uh, and here we go. Thank you very much for having us, for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So, no, thank you for being here. I know that you guys commute. Some of them have a long commute. I heard about an hour. I'm glad you're here. I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm really humbled to be your speaker today. We have a small group, so this is going to be very intimate conversation. So, hopefully, you can get something out of this. Please, if you don't get something out of it, get the booze. Some of the booze over there, and the pizza. It's a great food there. So, thank you, Asia, also for arranging this. I'm really excited to talk about create really a modern data that really drives value. Create a data platform that really drives value, because I wanted to emphasize on drive value, because this is one of the things that sometimes when the enterprises are going to data modernization, they think about pure technology. And what I'm talking about here is not necessarily about technology. It's about what's going to help to really implement data modernization projects. Well, let me introduce myself first of all. My name is Hugo Conde. I held different senior level, executive level positions in different companies. I've been in business for about 25 plus years. For the last 15 years, I've been dedicating myself primarily to the data space. I was former, prior to Parker Evans, I was working for Marriott Vacation Worldwide for about 7 years before the acquisition of Interval Leisure Group. Interval Leisure Group is another travel space in the vacation ownership, very local company as well. They're in the travel space, in the hospitality space primarily. And I was doing similar roles, primarily helping with not only just providing IT solutions, but primarily doing more data. So for the past 15 years, I kind of became kind of a data nerd, if you want to call it. So now I created a firm. I'm an independent consultant doing primarily IT advisory services to one of the largest real estate investment trust companies, and they built luxury apartment communities around the southeast and the southwest of the U.S. So that's what I'm doing now. So let me give you a little bit about also why I'm so passionate about this, about data modernization, because it's a way of changing how we change the future, reshape the future of how people use data for value today. So I think it's kind of it's not one of those sexy topics about AI, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because I don't think any presentation would be complete if we don't talk about AI. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well, and why this data modernization is kind of the important thing to accomplish. So if you want to talk, actually, if you want to reach me, you can, there's my email, that's my LinkedIn, if you want to have a contact with me after this. Um, so I want to start with the definition of data modernization, because I feel that this definition, it is a way of, it's a change of how we see data that drive value. And not only just that, I think it's a strategic approach. I believe it's a strategic approach for innovative, accessible governance that uses the cloud, a modern cloud platform, so they can see, organizations can actually see how people, technology, and process work together in a very transformative way. And I want to, probably heard about people, technology and process all the time, but this is really, really applied to data as well. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about it as well as we continue having this conversation. Please stop me if you have any questions. I know that some of you are in business intelligence. Some of you probably are working with other companies, helping them out, with the right resources. Some of them are, consultants as well. So, as companies or enterprises going through data modernization initiative, I want you to think about those three things: people, process, and technology, because it's going to help you out to connect with people who are driving this. Um, I wanted to, you probably see this graph before, many companies and very large companies, you're working with enterprise companies, you probably see this and more of a curve, kind of a learning curve between how you define data maturity. And I feel that it's not necessarily a learning curve, which it is, but it's more of a journey. And that's what I represent in here, kind of a journey to how to become a mature enterprise data-driven organization. Because at the end of the day, data modernization projects is about making or enable organizations to become a data-driven organization. And that's the final goal, to enable that. And in order to do that, we need to keep in mind the maturity level where companies are in this perspective. But one of the things that I wanted to also call out in terms of this particular graph is that the fact that the foundation to go into a more optimization level, the foundation is your data platform. All the agentic AI, which is kind of the sexy things that now we're talking about, AI and all the other things. I mean, it cannot be successful unless you have a good data, curated, certified data that feeds those agents in order to have a better outcome. So keep that in mind as they move this organization into a data maturity and also obviously have a more competitive advantage. This is something that, we need to see where they are in that maturity level. And this is kind of a journey, as I said. So how do you assess your portfolio, your data maturity, or for people actually that they are working with data all the time, data wrangling and maybe cobbling, with the data, and maybe they are using spreadsheets to do that work, to do that analysis, and they don't know that there is a better way. So how do you do that? This is something that I will talk about it during the course of this presentation, and I want you to think about that. And also think about how do we really build a cloud infrastructure as we define in that, how to deployment of different applications into the cloud, but without the partnership of the business and IT both working together. How do you actually make it successful? It's impossible. Most of the companies who are doing this as an IT alone, without involving, the business, they definitely fail. Most unlikely, they're gonna fail in their path. So, as we prepare to do these sexy things like agentic AI optimization and all the AI components associated with implementing AI, because it's not about agentic AI, it's all about machine learning, artificial intelligence that it brings everything together, simulation, optimization, and all those things that companies and enterprises are trying to do or trying to accomplish. They always need the topic of data, a data platform, a modern data platform. So, I want to give you a little bit of some data points why I'm saying that this is very important. Um, One of the studies or surveys that a company called TWI, I don't know if you're familiar with TWI, but TWI is an organization that provides IT services, primarily a lot of research and education around data management and data analytics and artificial intelligence. And this study, one of the things that, it's a very large organization. They have in their portfolio, they have about 400 Fortune 500 companies, so they have a good base of data here in order to come up with this study. And one of the objectives of this is really to assess the level of maturity that we talked about before, the level of maturity of these organizations that are interested in AI. And one of the things that they're saying is that, there is a lot of hype around AI, but most of them, half or less than half of them, they consider themselves mature. So that's the point here. Less than half, they consider themselves mature. Mature, in the data space. So that's one data point that I want to share with you. Second data point that I want to share with you is that in this particular case, they were asking what are the top challenges for us to implement AI? And and the top, there are many, but the top two are poor data quality and insufficient skills. And I want to call out primarily the data quality because, again, AI requires curated, business ready data in order to take advantage of agentic AI and some of the other models that we have in there. So, another data point that I want to show you, which is another company called Gartner. I don't know if you heard about Gartner, but Gartner is another large organization. They have about 13,000 customers worldwide in about 100 countries. And they do a lot of research about IT and advisory services. And this is what the study said. This is a 2025 study, by the way. This is not 2024, 2023. This is a 2025 study. And Gartner published this that because of the poor data quality that exists today in the enterprises, they're saying that the impact in revenue is about 6.25% due to poor quality. Imagine that large organizations. Think about that you are a billion-dollar company. If you have poor data quality, the impact on revenue is about $62 million. That's a lot of money. And even if Gartner, it is wrong about this prediction or this statement, imagine that it's half of it, that it's half wrong. It still is about $30 million just in poor data quality. So my point here is, again, in order to start with AI, you need to have curated, certified, clean data in order to make sure that the business makes accurate decisions and automate things, because that's the goal at this point of artificial intelligence with the agentic AI now. So let's talk about a little bit about the drivers, the business drivers that makes data modernization a good initiative. Another data point here is that McKinsey. I don't know if you're familiar with McKinsey. Some of you are, but McKinsey is another large consulting organization that provides also not only just advisory services but technology implementation to companies, large organizations. And one of the things that I wanted to call out from here is the fact that all of them are interested in AI, but one of the things that they feel is that these organizations need to have good data in order to implement AI. Right, and so, and this actually has captured, because most of the CIOs who were, involved in this survey, definitely saw that there is a lot of potential in AI, primarily the C-level executives. And because of that interest in AI, there are two realities that they get out of this survey. One of them is that the AI needs a high quality, business ready data. And secondly, that the only thing that they accomplish this is implementing a cloud infrastructure. Because cloud infrastructure provides the flexibility, the scalability, the computer power in order to perform these big data workloads. So I want you to think about those things, because this is actually why we're talking about data modernization, because it requires a good data power, right? A good data ecosystem. All right, so let's start with the challenges that sometimes I lost connection. Sorry about that. There you go. All right. So everything has challenges, right? I mean, data modernization is not immune to or different challenges. And most of the challenges that enterprise companies has is about the technology proliferation. You know, my current client, they went through 4 acquisitions in about 5 years. So imagine how much technology they have in there. They acquire a company, they have new tools, they have new data wrangling tools, new data scientist tools. So they have technology all over the place. But for data modernization, basically the top data modernization challenge is not about technology. It's about the adoption of technology. So I like to say that the presence of technology does not make a successful project, but adoption does. The adoption of technology. So that's my message, right? In this slide, that today there are also organizational resistance. This is one of the top challenges there. Why? Because perhaps some of those business users, they went through a very long process of maybe upgrading the new financial system. One of my clients, the only client that I have right now, went through this process of upgrading their ERP system, primarily because the software company wants them to be upgraded to be more secure. A lot of security issues came along with legacy systems. So they went through this painful process, a long-term process, to be able to implement something. And now they're saying, why do I need to go through a long process also to modernize my data? What is it for me? What is it for me that I have to do, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm still using the same data, wrangling with the same data in a very ineffective way. So there's a lot of organizational resistance that is important to understand. So as you take people into a journey of the data modernization, you can understand why they feel that way. So those are the things that also wanted to highlight here. And one of the other things that I think is important to think about is about how we find opportunities as people go through this, enterprise going through this painful process of upgrading and going through new tools and so forth. How do we find those opportunities to use data to give something satiating while they're still waiting for a long roadmap of implementing a data modernization project? So, because at the end of the day, remember, it's a journey, right? But at the same time, we need to give them something that they can actually take advantage of now, while they're still waiting to complete the roadmap. So let's answer some of those questions by understanding really what are the success factors for a data platform organization. There are 5 things in here that are listed. Obviously there are the vision, the operational efficiency, agility, comply with any type of regulatory things, and obviously at the end of the day it's about reaching competitive advantage. But one of the things that I wanted to call out here is that when organizations go through change, maybe creating a new data culture, maybe creating a new data leadership, they want to they need to have a very hard, important conversations and painful conversations sometimes about data minimization and technology simplification. What do we mean by that? I mean, data minimization is a principle of only collecting the necessary personal data for a specific purpose. One of the whole idea is to protect the data privacy and security. So this is one of the areas that I think it is important to keep in mind as we take, this organization into this journey, to be able to think about data minimization, technology simplification, because as I said, a lot of companies go through different tools, different businesses also created some shadow ITs. Why? Because IT cannot deliver. That happens with, my former employer. It has happened today with my client. So this is normal sometimes that we see IT skills or IT, support systems that right now that was created by the business and is still under the business side of it. So they end up with multiple tools. Obviously, this is something that needs to be sustainable. We need to create something that is a platform that everybody can use. So, in a modern data architecture, also could be very intimidating for people who are not close to the perimeter of IT. Right? They may feel that you know, confused or maybe a little bit of apprehensive to implement this. So how do we show them? How do we show them in a way a portfolio based on business value that they can embrace, and not necessarily to have a definition of technology, things that we're going to implement, or maybe perhaps a, 73 things in the cloud space that we can put together, and then, in order to deliver maybe an application or a data product. I mean, this is something that happens sometimes. We come up with IT primarily, come up with a list of things that we're gonna do in order to, but they never tied it to a business value. You see, and this is something that I think I wanted to also call out as part of this particular success factor, to keep those things in mind as we move forward to the journey. Um, so, what are things about data governance? How about that? Data governance, I think is important now more than ever, because when we talk about data quality, data governance sometimes has a bad reputation because of the, nobody wants to govern or feel that they are governed something, right? Some people call it now, data enablement rather than data governance. So, but at the end of the day, I think data quality and data governance, has it been there's a renaissance, I would say, because they found out, throughout, a few years ago, many enterprises went through GDPR. I don't know if you're familiar with GDPR concepts, right? Or CCPA. GDPR is the data privacy regulation for Europe. CCPA is one of the California regulations for data privacy. So they found out when they start going through this, process, they found out that the customer data are all over the place. They are in multiple applications, they are in spreadsheets, they are in reports that they get downloaded and then shared. And then they have this Joe creating this report every Thursday, sending these reports to people inside and outside the organization. And they get horrified, because they found this out. But this opened up the opportunity, right, to organizations to think about more of data management, data dictionaries, where the data lineage, where the data is, and then provide some security in the process as they know exactly where the data is. So those are the type of things that are important also when it comes to data modernization. Um, so now, envision now, for example, a platform. I want you to envision a platform that they can provide all these things together here. Think about how the people are gonna be start working. If it will change the way people start working, because they're not going to start collaborating, and the partnership that you can get between business and IT, as long as you implement all those things. So I want you to envision a platform like that, because this is one of the things that you would like to get to as you take the organizations into this journey. Many people, think about this, right? I mean, if a data process takes 30 hours a week from somebody who start doing data wrangling, cobbling things together in order to get, a dashboard or a report. Think about if that process that used to take 30 hours, it only takes 2 hours now. What do you think people are gonna start thinking about? more than likely, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to be repurposed, right? But I like to think that these 28 hours that you can save can be actually reused or repurposed for spending more time on things that you haven't done in the past 2 years. So it is about understanding and actually help people out to be able to accomplish things a lot easier than they're doing it today. All right. So enough of this. I want to give you a little bit of a data management spectrum here. And this is a little bit more technical, for the ones who understand some of the data concepts. If you notice here, you're gonna see, I can see from here very much. You're gonna see from the left-hand side is also the basic stuff. All the basics are on the left-hand side, and all the advanced things are on the right-hand side. Think about the basic, all the data architecture, data modeling, database design, and then on the right-hand side, you have all the innovative things. Like, for example, the data, to create a data modernization, people doing more privacy engineering, creating data mesh, data ops, DevOps, So those are the new stuff. But at the same time, you need to have the basics before you go to the new stuff. So as you look at this, I want you to think of more of an assessment, because most companies, they feel that they're kind of in the middle. So as you look at this, at this spectrum, right, and you assess your environment, see what services you have now and what are the things you need to get to the next level. So I don't know if you played any video games, but you can go to level 5 before you go to the prior levels, right? I mean, many people do that. So think about this, right? I mean, those are the things that you have to have in order to do data analytics. It's kind of the table stakes before you do data analytics. But in order to get to the right-hand side, the thinking needs to change. Collaboration needs to happen. And also, most importantly, that partnership that is important to have with the business and IT. So, all right. So one of the things that I wanted to give you, also some value levers that sometimes people forget, which is, things that we can use in order to justify our data initiative. As you put this, your data products initiative and so forth, think about these value levers, that they have. Many companies wants to accomplish this. In one way or another, they want to accomplish these 5 things. So imagine now that you have maybe a data product that you want to deliver, and now you're saying, okay, maybe my data product can be attached or tied to new revenue generation. I would recommend that any product or any portfolio of items that you want to implement in your organization, want to help the companies to organize and do this work, they tied it to a specific value lever, maybe a primary or secondary. But the idea here is that you need to tie it together, right? There is some cost associated with implementing data modernization. This is part of the value lever. Cost reduction. Cloud is very underestimated for the cloud. The cost of the cloud is very underestimated. And unless you have a FinOps organization or a cloud center of excellence, or maybe a data center of excellence, who are actually monitoring their resources and managing, tagging every single resource in the cloud, I mean, this, thing, the cost could be really out of control. So these are the things that I personally feel that in order to justify your data product, you need to tie it to these value levers and go to your client, your business stakeholders, and say, look, I think I can help you reach, regulatory compliance. I think I can help you bring data so you can have better campaign management data to be able to personalize your campaigns to your clients, your customers. So once you have that conversation, tied it to those two together, technology with business initiative or business value levers, then you have a better approach to seek for funding, and go through that process. Many organizations have the different process to get funding, but once you attach it together, your data products and your business value levers, I think there's a much opportunity for you to deploy a better data product and seek for funding. All right. So I think one of the things that I was just telling you about this partnership and so forth between business and IT, I personally feel that this is a meeting point between the business and IT, that part of the middle. They need to have an understanding of what it takes to do these innovation projects. And the way to accomplish this is by discussing this with the business, IT and then business, to understand what is going to involve to implement a data strategy, data governance, what it was going to take to implement an data strategy, and have those conversations, and make sure that there is the right utility in place. Let me talk a little bit about that. So for example, when you implement a portfolio of data products, I mean, this is just an example of it, of simple, different data products that companies typically they develop. Either you're in supply chain or you're working with, sales and marketing. The data product, I want you to think about these data products as you go to a grocery store. You go to a grocery store, you go to an aisle, you pick up the product, you see where it was manufactured, you see what is it for, you see how to use it, sometimes recipes in there. You don't go to a dog aisle if you're hungry, pick up some, food from there to start eating it. That will be a poor utility, you see? So I want you to think about data products that way, that need to have some labels, how to use it, who's supposed to be using it, what data is in there. You understand the provenance and the data lineage of your data. All of that needs to be part of that data product. Also, I want you to think data product also as you go to the pharmacy as well. The pharmacy, you go to a pharmacy, you don't pick up things from off the shelf. Typically, you got a prescription to get your medicine, right? So I want you to think about that. If the data product is privacy enabled, data secured, then you can see who's supposed to be using it and why they need to be using it. You see, that's what data utility is all about. To understand why they need to be used, how to use it, and obviously secure the data. So I want you to get this out, So when we talk about then data products and what it takes, I want you to also think about that, in order to accomplish these things or define these data products, it requires people, resources, but most importantly also some of the technologies that you got to be invested in here. So we need to have a good data analytics ecosystem that help you or help the organizations to build these data products. That conversation needs to happen really in these data points. This data strategy, data governance, data AI strategy. Some people now combine the AI strategy with your data strategy, which is fine. But without a data strategy, without data governance, a data strategy cannot work at all. So they need to have those three elements in there. And because of that meeting point, discussion with the business, hey, this is what's going to take to implement this, this process. So that's a meeting point, right? The strategy, they need to be communicated as you have ideation, different portfolio of projects, and have innovation, right? You might want to implement data ops in there. I heard about that, they're doing that. But data ops requires people, right? A lot of, leadership, they think, oh, but it's ops, it's everything automated. You need less people. That's not true. I mean, there are a lot of things that need to happen in order to implement data ops. There's a lot of technology involved in order to automate things. But at the same time, there are still more data products to come, there are more maintenance to do, more workloads to do. So, I mean, people needs to be involved. So discussing these matters with business stakeholders and senior leaders is important. That before you start embarking in this data modernization project, you need to have those conversations with your business stakeholders. And so anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of one of the things that we talk about. First phase is really to have a definition of what you do in this project. I think it's important to have that define the reason, the goals of your strategy. You need to align it with the business, strategy. Keep that in mind. It needs to be aligned. We talked about that. As you move forward into the assessment process, make sure that you identified all the pain points, right, including the organizational barriers that we talked about, that I mentioned before, and also, identified all the data sources that you're gonna be involved in this process. There might be some mainframes involved, and it requires a little bit of work in order to retrieve those that data from mainframes, and that still a lot of organizations are still using these legacy systems. And also involve your people, involve the security team as you develop your strategy. Define your data architecture. You are keep that in mind that data governance is important, data security. So you need to involve your security team, your risk management team in the process. So as you develop these things, you can actually say that you're going to be compliant with those requirements. So involve that as part of that, developing data strategy. And then prioritize your projects, right? I mean, some of those projects require understanding what's going to be the most impactful data products, right? And maybe less resources. Some of them might require more resources, more impactful, but some of those things can be, developed with less resources, less cost, and it can be very impactful for the business. So go through a prioritization process when you're doing this type of work, or when you're asking questions to maybe your clients, right? Hey, what's your priority here? What projects are the most impactful? Can I help you out with that? Can I help you provide these resources for you? I personally think that as I also deal with a lot of companies providing resources. These questions help me out to understand if the partner that I'm looking for is really the right partner. So think about those things as you move forward, or your organization or your clients are selecting or embarking in this project. As you're doing selection process, I would highly recommend not only just to select the right technologies, is to do proof of concepts. If you are in that process, do proof of concepts before you can make any selection, any final selection. Why? Because it will give you an opportunity to reassess your strategy, to understand if this is something that you have to revisit, and be able to go through that process again. And as soon as you execute your plan as part of the last phase, monitor that process. Make sure that that there's no business changes, because business needs changes all the time, year over year. There's new priorities in place, and embark or embrace an agile approach. That will give you an opportunity to reassess whatever you're doing and reestablish how you're going to plan to execute that roadmap. So those are the things that I want to call out from this slide as you embark in this roadmap. I'm going to be a little bit more technical. Just wanted to, it's kind of curious. I put this together because I know, you look at the, as you put in the data architectures, look at the past just 20 years, how many different data architecture models have been in place. We have big data. Look in 2003, that the MDM started to come up. But in the past 7 years, 8 years, we have data lakes, we have data fabric, data mesh. I mean, all the things that probably you heard about it with your clients. All these models have, evolved in the last 7, 8 years. So I believe that it's not, as you select, you put in your data architecture, it's not about the or, it's about the and. So meaning that, if you, maybe, can I select the data mesh versus data fabric? Maybe it's an and instead of an or. because they have different functionalities, they have different data utility in place. So as you look at this, think about this reference architecture. This is, I don't know if you can read that, it's allowed in here, but there are different, utilities, right, in terms of their ingestion, storage, processing, developing insights, and at the end of the day, create some actions and data consumption. So this will give you kind of I use this more of a heat map that tells me to see what is the maturity level of the companies, right? To be able to see these data components, and it helped me out to determine, okay, I want to do a data science. Maybe the business wants to do a data science for you. Okay, but unless you certify your data, unless data govern your data on a daily basis, on a weekly basis to make sure that the data is quality, I wouldn't recommend to you to do that X or Y. So take a look at this as a more of a maturity level heat map as well as you have these discussions with your business stakeholders or the companies or that you're dealing with. So anyway, this is just a reference architecture. You don't have to implement all of them. This is a very prescriptive framework. So meaning that you can select some of the things that you need, but you don't need to implement all of them. Right? That's my message here. So this is one of the examples of a modern data platform. And I stole this graphic from this guy from Deepak. I thought that he did a very interesting, a point here because it kind of illustrates where the data is coming from, where it goes to into different data technologies. In this case, this particular data platform technology, they selected, a data lake and a lake house to be involved. They have, if you notice that the data sources are different files, maybe different operational databases. It goes through a data lake, and then it goes into a lake house, and the lake house, in this case, they selected, the data vault as a format, and then from there it goes into the enterprise data warehouse and the different data marts to be consumed by all these applications, either business intelligence or apps or maybe business users wants to query this data. But at the end of the day, if you notice as well, one of the things that they have is streaming data. They implemented an event bus broker, if you're familiar with that, to be able to do stream analytics. Perhaps because a machine learning model requires this data constantly to be able to learn and provide some advice to applications on the back end. But this is a specific requirement, right? This is a prescriptive. Do you need to implement this? No. But if you have the business need for it, yes, go ahead and put some frameworks around streaming data and implement that. So basically, that's what, the whole, this particular example, that's what illustrates. And then obviously on the bottom part of it, everything is supported by the cloud, the different cloud services. One of the things that I would recommend personally, if you engage into a cloud or your many companies today, they have multiple clouds. That's really the reality. But in order to do data modernization, you need to put them in a common platform. So take advantage of the services that the cloud provides your partner, because you chose that data platform, you chose the vendor, you chose your partners. So take advantage of those things as you implement this modern data platform, right? And this is something that you can recommend in the process. So good? All right. So I see no questions, so I'm a little getting nervous. So data product lifecycle, how about that? Many organizations are used to, the software development lifecycle, and the data product lifecycle is no different. However, in this process, business needs to be involved. They're used to, for example, have this software delivered to them, every cycle, they have new functionality, they test it, but now in the data product life cycle, the business stakeholders need to be involved because they need to certify the data. They may ask you, why do I need to do now data governance? What does that mean? What do I need to do this all the time to verify and certify my data? They are part of the data product lifecycle. And that's what the meeting is all about, right? To just have those discussions with your business stakeholders to say, hey, this is what it's going to take to go into a data product lifecycle that allows you to do what you want to do. You need to be involved. So that self-awareness and that we talked about early, it has to be in the discussion with your business users, or between business and IT in this case. All right. So I just want you to leave you with these data themes and guidance principles. Make sure that you offer this as a service, most of your data platforms. The goal that I was trying really to communicate here in this slide is to please consider your people and the process as part of your data model ecosystem. You need to be able to help them out. There are hundreds of providers. If you go into any data conference, you're gonna see data providers, any kind of technology out there to make things easier for you. I mean, if you are into that space, right? I mean, but the thing is that you need to go back to the assessment process. That it really, this tool is gonna allow me to make things faster, to save cost. If it really is gonna help me out to provide something satiating to the business stakeholders while we're still waiting for a long roadmap to be able to accomplish what they want to do. So think about those things, right? Does this simplify my technology? Does it eliminate some of the technology debt that I have in our environment? Those are the things that I think need to be thought out when we're looking at these principles. So, and this needs to be very aligned, right? Aligned with the business, what they're trying to accomplish, and look at those business value levers that we talked about. So I'm gonna leave you with one, couple of questions, or a question actually to think about. Is your data spurring people into action? If you're going through those clients, right, and ask, if you are servicing clients as well, ask them that question. If your data is spurring, people into action. If it's not, then let's go back to that self-assessment we talked about, into that, diagrams that I mentioned about the maturity level. Think about all things, right? As you put people into action, you do this self-reflection about what needs to do in order to accomplish your goal to become a more data-driven organization. So the other question is, are you of your client inspiring people into action? If not, try to make it so. Encourage others, encourage your clients to spur people into action, because that's going to help them to implement this data platform organization. So that's it for me. Thank you for being here, listening to me. Thank you. So hopefully you get something out of this. If not, the boost is there. Yes.
Several questions around the value levers that you mentioned. What have you seen has been like the biggest motivator for companies to invest? Is it the revenue value creation? Is it cost reduction? Is it compliance? What's that thing which is like really?
I think it's all of the above. For example, in my prior or former employer, everything was, revenue driven. Projects that are revenue driven are prioritized first one. Then second thing is cost reduction. Can I eliminate my technical debt? The same thing happens with my client today. I want to simplify the technology because I have so many, and people are using this data here, this data over here. So I need to be able to, consolidate all those things and eliminate all this technical debt that I have. Some people develop, data warehouses, and they connect things to the data warehouse. Somebody may have an idea. Hey, you know what? Let me connect RESTful web services API to be used for my application here from a data warehouse. And then you turn around and there are 500 of these connections now, because not only one. And then you end up with a huge technical debt that you need to think about when the data warehouse needs to go to the cloud. So to answer your question, I gave you kind of a long answer, but the point here is that all of the above: cost reduction, technical debt, discussions, and obviously revenue generation. Yeah. Yes.
Another question regarding the maturity stages of the companies, which is the one that you think companies waste more money buying like tools or platforms, thinking they are in another stage.
That's a good question. The thing is that at least the ones that I've been experiencing with, right? People buy tools because either IT cannot deliver, and then they said, I cannot wait for IT to deliver my product. I need to buy something to solve my problem. And then business, obviously, all the business units, they have their own thing, and they end up with the thing because IT cannot deliver. Secondly, I've seen, technology tools or different in the maturity level, that we talked about, because they are experimenting, and IT, maybe they have an organization that is only primarily IT driven. And then they end up with multiple tools that are not being used because business says, I don't know what it's at. I mean, why I'm not getting involved in those decision making process? So they end up with multiple tools at the same time that are not being used, that is still stuck in the shelf, not implemented. So that something happens. And obviously, acquisitions. A lot of enterprises are going through multiple acquisitions. They end up with multiple tools, and it's confusing. It's confusing. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Yeah. 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 Any other question? I see a familiar face. I see my.
I do have another, maybe if you know any source, you work a lot of sources like McKinsey and these kind of companies. For sure, you know any source where we can find like statistics regarding the amount of money wasted selling in AI investment. Because
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of companies made a lot of investments in AI because it's fancy, but they don't just wasting money all the time. So,
Yeah. I think KPMG, which is another company, they provide a lot of things on AI nowadays. I think you can learn about what larger companies are doing and what experiences are. There's still a lot of hallucinations in agentic AI. I don't think it's ready for the enterprise yet, but I think it's gonna get there eventually. But they are, Gartner. There's another source, and we mentioned about that, and Forrester as well. There's another things that Forrester provides, another large organization. So I mean, there are plenty of information, out there that you can use. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of talk around, to make AI work properly, you need to have proper semantics around your data. Can you talk about how are you seeing people beginning to really ask for that? Like, we want to be able to build this semantic layer on top of our data so we can make better use of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are different tools to implement the semantic layer, and obviously, I think semantic layer is important. Some people build what they call data visualization, and they use the semantic layer for data visualization in order to introduce all the connections and data sources. So many companies are thinking about that. Remember that framework that I mentioned, that reference architecture? There is a layer there for have a semantic layer in place. So obviously, I personally think the semantic layer is very important so people to understand it. But at the same time, it's not just about semantic layer. It's having a data dictionary, and build a good metadata management in there, because you can have a semantic layer, you see how things are working. I mean, it's easier for technologies really to get this, help you out to bring this data. But for people that, if you don't have a data dictionary, to see what that data means, right? Sometimes you can connect things without realizing that you're not getting the right information. So I think it's important. Yes, metadata management is important in order to define every single table, every single data source that you have, in a more English-like terms, right? But at the same time, I think needs to be a data catalog in place. You need to understand the data lineage, how the data, the provenance of the data, right? Where that data is coming from. I think if you combine those three things, then you have a more robust understanding and provide you know, um, a better usage, a better data utility for your business, for people that are going to be using the data. I mean, actually, data visualization is very, very nice concept. If you don't want to bring data back into a data warehouse, right? They want to define that, more of a virtual and there's no data involved, and people are start using that. But I think it has a problem. Sometimes, you need to bring data from other systems that are not data sources or direct databases. Sometimes you need to bring unstructured data, JSON format into a data warehouse, and then that virtualization doesn't bring everything together. So a metadata management needs to be kind of a high level too, as part of the selection process. Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. There's more networking. If you have more questions for Hugo, you're more than welcome to talk. If food and more drinks, go ahead and have it. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks. I say hi to a good friend of mine.